Who am I? If I could keep asking myself that question every day. Officially named Filip Konikowski, Konrad Konikowski, Filip with an F, Konrad with a K, Konikowski with a K too. There you go. Something you probably didn't know. But I am a photographer, mainly. Soon to be bringing out another book, so author as well, you may as well say. And I guess all-round good guy, maybe. I don't know, sometimes. But yes, I do photography, have done for about 16 years, and mainly in the kind of portrait realm. Over the years, fine art. And as the years keep rolling by, you've kind of got to go make some money. So the commercial and advertising realm as well. But yeah, lately I've got a book coming out called Vintage Car Porn, and that's about vintage cars. And I do that not even on the side. It's kind of whenever I see vintage cars, I'm hanging out the passenger window or the driver's side window, depending on which side of the car I'm in. Sometimes I'm in the boot. Sometimes I'm on foot. But yeah, essentially a person who documents a moment in time. Yeah.
It's beautiful, mate.
It's a beautiful.
You're a good storyteller. You're good on camera.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, you are good on camera. A lot of people would have fucked that up.
I'm talking absolute code shit, and it's probably best that I'm doing it in the morning as well, because I'm not.
You don't have your defenses up yet. So, how did vintage car porn start?
Vintage car porn started probably from the day I was young enough to watch movies, I guess. I remember watching movies such as The Wanderers, Sandlot Kids, and seeing all these, old Cadillacs and Chevys with the wings, and always saying to myself, "Oh, that's or Peggy Sue or Thelma and Louise, all these old cars with wings on the back." And I was always growing up going, "Fucking, I'd love to own a big fuck off land yacht, 8 meters long, nowhere to fucking park it in Melbourne, but that's what I wanted." And as I grew up, I realized my love for old cars and just the aesthetics. Fuck all. I don't know fuck all about cars inside. There's an engine and there's a steering wheel and off we go. But in terms of look, that's what kind of attracted me to cars and old cars. And the old world, I think the old world has got a lot to offer in design, especially. So as I grew as a photographer and as an individual, I had this interest that kind of slowly burnt for years. And due to own licensing car issues, I had to walk everywhere, which essentially forced me to have to walk to my photography studio, my first one ever, down in Paran. And I think I had my first ever iPhone, and it was an iPhone 3. And I'd walk past this one Ford, funny enough, this one Ford Ute. The photo's actually here, I'll show you in a sec.
We can film that afterwards.
No, I'm fucking going to grab it for you now.
Grab it.
So this was in Hawkesburn. So I'd get off at Hawkesburn station, and I would walk to Paran to this studio, and I just got the new iPhone 3, I think it was. The new, newest thing. Mind you, the first one I ever lost. Bloody Carney stole it off me. But the second iPhone 3 that I had, with a white back, curved. I saw this Ford, beautiful Ford. Not even a Ford, sorry. Is it a Ford? Yeah, it's a Ford. It is. It's Ford Falcon. It's a Ford Falcon.
Just angle it down for reflection. That's right. That's it. Hold that. So tell us about that.
So this was the first ever image I took on an iPhone for vintage car porn, so to speak. And the series began. Due to the loss of my own license, I had to walk everywhere. And I used my first ever iPhone 3 to photograph this image. And this started the whole series. And this sort of, without even knowing, like vintage car porn began at that time. And there was no real idea. There was no real kind of, I didn't go out and set upon and go, oh, I'm going to go do that. It just kept happening. That synchronization occurred, that I'd see these cars all the time, and I'd take photos of them and post them on Instagram, and just keep building a library, and the library got bigger and bigger. And then after about 4 or 5 years, people started asking me, like, what are you going to do with these images? And then you sit down and you kind of try to design a front cover of a book, and I'm not no fucking designer, so you kind of put it on the back burner every time. So I did that a few times, and the images kept accumulating until probably last year, and I started realizing, fuck man, I've really got to do something with this idea, and I've got over 10,000 photos, which have been taken over every single iPhone model that I've ever had. And majority of them have been taken on phones, other than with my travel ones where I've been overseas, and that's been taken on an Olympus or a Canon or on a film camera. But I was lucky enough that a friend of mine designed the front cover of the latest book.
Shout out
to Tom Vincent. Yep, Tom Vincent at Paints Studio, who designed the front cover of the latest book, and it was like this. Just nailed it. He nailed it. So it kind of set me on this trajectory to create the book finally.
Can you grab the book and show us?
Yeah. Fucking running around.
It's good exercise for you, mate. Not getting any younger.
Sunday, mate.
Yeah, look at that.
Did you want to do this though?
What?
Like this? I'm not a fan of this kind of. Look at me, look at my book. You know what I mean? I'm not a massive. That's not my vibe. I don't think.
What's your vibe?
Maybe showing the book, just sitting there and kind of maybe doing B-roll on the book while I'm talking over overlay of it. Not me going, oh, look at my book. Oh, look at this. Hey, Kerry Ann, have a look at my book. Great. What? And Larry M just standing there going, oh, look at this. Sunday morning here at 8 a.m. on Channel 10. Look, Phil Konikowski's got a book, and look at that. Look at that. It's glistening in the sun. Woo! Like, not my vibe. But yeah, cool cover. Fuck, super cool that. Yeah, no, not my vibe. Sorry. Finish that one. It's funny actually about that, off topic, but it's funny that photo, I still tried to find the original file. So I gave that's the original photo I ever printed, the first one I printed. I gave it to Di, who I shared the studio with. And then when I went to do the book, I was like, oh fuck, I need to put the first photo that I ever took. I went looking for the
page one?
Yes, but it's not in that. It's in the not the sample. Anyway, I couldn't find the fucking digital file, so I ended up having to take a photo of the photo.
Oh.
Yeah.
How'd you go with that?
Yeah, fine. No, well, I took it out of the fucking frame.
Yeah. You're a smart guy.
Not really. Fucking rolling in dough. God.
So what are we going to do today, mate?
So today we're going to go for a little bit of a cruise. Maybe go grab a coffee. Hopefully, in between all of that, we might be able to find ourselves a vintage car. Not that I usually go looking for it. More often than not, it's me, going about my normal business, and I'll see a car or two here or there. Like it's not something that I look for and have ever looked for. But when I do see them, fucking all hell breaks loose. I'm out of the car, I'm taking photos, then my wife's taking photos of me taking the photos. So, once I get there and I find them, then I'm ready to go, you know. But I'm not out there to look for them. So, but today we're going to go look for them. So I feel like Steve Irwin.
So why?
Knowing our fucking luck, we'll probably end up going on St Kilda foreshore and there'll be a fucking car show.
Oh yeah.
Probably, I don't know.
Yeah.
But you know,
Interesting.
that's cheating.
That is cheating.
That is cheating. That's why I've never hung out at any car shows. Because you sit in a corner and you get the same fucking photo of the same corner with just a different car.
So some criticism that you've gotten in comments that you told me about was a guy saying that's not vintage.
Oh yeah.
So what does encompass vintage car porn for you?
Look, I think it's like anything nowadays or has been. It's just a brand. It's just a overall arching time period for me of an old bygone era of design. But some people are really specific, and apparently vintage car is a time period from 1917. Don't quote me on this. To 1937, because some prick's going to go, "Oh, that's not the vintage car time." And he turned around and he said to me, on the keyboard warrior vibes, don't see any vintage cars in your Instagram page or on your Facebook page. And sat there and thought about it for a moment, and I wrote back, "Oh, I don't see any porn either, do you, mate?" So I never heard back from him. Probably never bought a book either.
I mean, people call.
Classic cars. And we're meant to be calling them classic cars, as vintage cars. There's a whole array of different eras for different names per se. So sorry, I couldn't bring out a classic car book or a fucking first age car book or whatever the fuck you want to call them. They're just a bunch of cars in a book that's called Vintage Car Porn. With no porn. All vintage cars. Just cars.
That are kind of old.
Fuck, they're kind of old. Bit rusty. Do you know what I mean? Definitely no fucking electric cars in there though.
No Teslas.
No, none of those fucking...
Maybe in 100 years.
You can't even hear the thing.
If AI keeps you alive, you can include Teslas into volume 68.
Yeah. Or build your dreams. How do you come up with a fucking... Have you seen all these new car brands? They're called Build Your Dreams.
Would you say that as a photographer you have a style, or is that not a thing?
Style? Definitely have a style. Definitely dark and gloomy.
Is your style?
I think so. I think it's more of the darker side of things. Definitely on the low key as opposed to high key. So when I started photography, and the first few years, on my own journey through it all, and assisting others, and and assisting is usually the years that you put in, as it would be, like a uni degree. But as opposed to doing a uni degree and being taught the same method as everyone else in the class, you go out and you learn from a bunch of different photographers, and you take, what attracts you and what appeals to you, and and you create your own style through that. And in creating those connections with these other photographers, you learn more about who you are and what direction you want to take. So I think essentially there was like a moment where I think I was shooting a lot of fashion photography in the first sort of 10 years of my career, and people would say, "Oh, you need a style, or you need to focus on a style." And what I was doing was everything I was photographing was a lot on the darker side, low key, moodier, much more cinematic, a lot more light orientated, and without even thinking, the style kind of developed. So it's always been looking for the light and looking for heavier kind of contrasts, or I remember people used to say to me, "Oh, it's the best day to shoot a wedding is when it's, cloudy." And I'm like, well, it's fucking not, it's fucking dark and gloomy. And there's no light to play with. It's just a safe way to shoot it, So I think my style has never been safe. It's always just been a way to, it's been the way, probably the more difficult side of it. So being more in control of what the light does and how it does it. So then, you know, fast forward to vintage cardboard and you grab a subject that's not even planned to be there and you're trying to find a photo within that. And the idea to always cut out other cars and other, time stamp moments so that you can't tell when that photo was taken for the vintage car porn sort of genre of photography that I do. But in terms of style, fuck man, just make it fucking look good. At the end of the day, I've always been the type of person, if you were to take me rock climbing or bouldering, and gave me all the gear and said, let's go start here, let's start on this one, this is the easiest one, I'd probably be looking at the hardest route, and that's what I'd be starting on. And I think that's always been within me in my life, is that I've always tried to skip the easiest to go to the hardest and then work back from that, for whatever reason. And I think that's the same with photography. You know, whenever you'd open up a magazine and you'd delve into how something was photographed, that was the study, to work backwards from how someone photographed it and then try to replicate that. I think that's my style. That develops my style in a sense, because you're trying to, a great artist doesn't copy, he steals at the end of the day. So, I think that you've got to understand others' process to build your own, style within that as well. I'm talking a lot of shit.
No, it's good.
I need some water. I can tell you.
You're predominantly a portrait photographer, or you've been branded as such for a certain amount of years. Is that right?
So,
what do people think? Do you think?
So when I started photography, it was either fashion or portraits. And I started in a time period where MySpace had just begun. And I was well versed in the party industry and nightclubs and whatnot. So I knew a lot of DJs that circumvented it. What's the fucking word? Let's start that again.
Frequented.
No, circumvented. Circumvented.
Smart.
Circumvented. I did say it correctly. I just didn't say it correctly. So when I started photography many, many moons ago, MySpace was still a thing and had just become like the craze. Everyone's top friend was Tom, and every other DJ that they hung around at the time. And funny enough, I was part of a circle of DJs and friends. We were like all party goers and nightclub promoters. And I just started photography, and I beyond people telling me that you've got to find a style, I needed to find a subject. And I found that because of all these DJs I knew, Beat Magazine and DJ magazines, they'd always have these guys holding fucking vinyl players or vinyls and with headphones on, and it was really kitsch and it was really terrible. And with this new age of needing content, I figured that why not show these people in a different vein, take a proper portrait of them. So I created a portfolio in portraiture with a bunch of all these DJ friends, but I could be really creative with it because it wasn't, they weren't. The industry didn't seek a serious portrait in a sense, so it gave me creative freedom on that. So in turn, I kind of built a portrait folio out of that, and enjoyed working with people and enjoyed working with creative people, especially because it gives you kind of freedom in what you do and what how you show that person and what they're all about as well. So it's not just about taking a photo with them holding a fucking CD and CD stacker and some headphones.
And where's that at now? Because you photograph, you do portraits.
I still do portraits, and I still do.
You've got a very nice portrait portfolio, and you've got some recognisable faces in there as well. So where's your portrait photography at now? Would you say, what's the state of it?
I'm still photographing, creative people, and I think that's what still, I enjoy the most. It's a funny old thing with portrait photography, because you can take a really cool portrait of someone that's unknown, but you could take a really mundane portrait of someone that's very known, and all of a sudden you're doing really well. And I think that's perception, and regular people's perception on a lot of things, not just my portrait photography, or it's just in general. I think people are, it's easier to recognize something that they know of than something they don't know of. So you can say that yes, my portrait photography is well versed with people that we know, but is it great? I don't know. It's just a bunch of people that are recognizable to the regular person,
That's interesting that you could have a 5-star photo of somebody, of your cousin or something, and then you could have a really shit photo of a celebrity, but it's that second shit photo that's going to get you more work.
I don't think it's definitely. I don't think it's the. Look, don't get me wrong. It's not a shit photo, so to speak, but I think hypothetically, no. I think also, I think I'm undermining it as well, because at the end of the day, it's more of just a simple sort of photo. It's a simple styled photo. It shows more of the person, and it's probably more about the person than anything else, because it is a more basic portrait. But I think. If you're always seeking, you're only as good as your last photo shoot, so to speak. You're only as good as your last job. It's the same as if you're a sports player, you're only as good as your last performance. You're always seeking to do better constantly, and make a better product, or a better representation of that person, or a better representation of the person that you have in front of you.
Would you ever want to turn vintage car porn into your professional work, or is it important that it always remains as your side passion?
I think vintage car porn will always just be a hobby, or something that has come about and will always be about on the go. It's not that I get in the car and go, oh yeah, we're going to look for Fords today, or we're going to look for Porsche 911s. Whoa. Yeah, whoa. Let's go, babe. You ready to go see that Carrera? No, we're not going to. No, I don't do that. It's always going to be something that just occurs naturally out in the wild, so to speak. And whether I'm, in New York, or whether I'm in Havana in Cuba, then, it gives me a basis to continue the series without having to search for it. But at the moment I've got over 10,000 photos, which means I've probably got another 3 or 4 editions of books. I could kick it on a hammock and do fuck all and bring out the books. Can talk shit.
What's your personal favourite habitat that you've filmed in?
For vintage cars?
Country or area, yeah.
For just by chance?
Yeah, for vintage car porn.
Well, obviously, I dare say the most interesting place for the subject of vintage car porn was definitely Havana in Cuba. They were put under a trade embargo by the American government, over 50 years ago. So it was a time warp when I was there, because cars were from back then, and there was, you had your own little. Every so often you see a Toyota Hiace or a Yaris, in between all these beautiful Cadillacs and Chevs that have been rolling around for 50 years, bunged up. So no, there was plenty of it. But the most fascinating part of it all was that obviously there was no parts being sent to them from GM, from General Motors, because of the embargo. So they had to actually create their own parts to make these cars continually running. So every so often you'd see, the hood of a car open, or them tinkering with it, doing the MacGyver with the chewing gum, whatever it was. But that was kind of fascinating. But yeah, definitely a beautiful backdrop in terms of it being on an island, and obviously these old cars amongst these brutalist buildings, communist buildings, was quite fascinating. But I think Paris was also on the opposite contrast. You see a Ferrari Dino parked within this beautiful landscape of Paris. So yeah, it's every part of every landscape has its own beauty. Whether it's Balaclava or Windsor or Fitzroy, it doesn't matter. It could be New York, and it's quite relevant to the subject matter, because some cars you won't ever see around in different places.
I'll just wait for that on point. So the landscape is a huge part of it for you, the backdrop.
Definitely. The idea is to never photograph a car with any other car in it, to never give away the period it was taken in. It's always been about photographing the car amongst just the buildings and the natural habitat, in a sense.
That must be frustrating when you got the perfect car and landscape parked amongst a lot of other cars, I imagine.
Yeah, but the idea is to crop it out, and then what happens is, once you find the ability to be able to do that, it's not just the landscape, it's not just a car shot. I turn it into an urban carscape. And I think that's the tagline nowadays for what I do. I'm taking urban carscapes. Vintage car porn, urban carscapes. When I photograph vintage cars, it's not that I'm a master of that genre of what I do. I think my mastery is within portrait photography. And this has always just been a bit of fun, and fun that kind of resembles who I am. Someone that can't sit still, someone that can't always focus on one thing. So, it's just by chance that it's always there. And it's like, yeah, cool, let's take a photo of it, Again, talking shit. Just needed to justify why I was on the phone.
So you're Polish, are you?
I am, yes, my background is Polish. Born in Germany and an immigrant to Australia.
Does that feed into your work in any way?
Well, apparently a lot of Polish there's a lot of Polish cinematographers in the world, so for whatever reason there must be dark and gloomy content from that area of the world, and for whatever reason they're very cinematic with their photography. I don't know. It's a strange old thing that part of the world produces a lot of cinematographers. I think moving into the long form version of what I do is probably moving into motion and directing or cinematography is where I want to head. Maybe whatever it is, whether it's documentary or films, but I think just telling stories, and I think constantly telling stories. I think people's attention span doesn't complement and acknowledge stills as it used to. I think when people picked up a newspaper back in the day, it was read 70 pages 3 times over in a day and look at the photos and look at the pictures, and that gave them context to their story or the editorial that was written by the journalist or by the storyteller. Whereas nowadays you take a photo and it could be a brilliant photo, but there is so much noise that it's hard to distinguish. So I think maybe giving myself an opportunity to tell a story that lasts longer, I guess, rather than a split second for someone to gauge their attention. I think with the ever-changing world, it's so much harder to gauge people's attention. So I think I think the form of having someone bum on seat for a little bit longer to tell that story is maybe where I'm going. I think everyone's got a way of telling the story, and I think my way is, obviously relative to the way I see the world. The subject and the genre might change, but the way I tell the story is relative just to myself, or is only specific to where I do it. So my point of view will never be the same as someone else's point of view, or it will, I don't know. I've lost train of thought. You lost me. I've lost myself.
That's good.
Nah.
Mate, we've got it.
Nah.
That was a great interview.
Really? Okay. So much of the content that I've shot for the book or for Vintage Car Porn has been it's also, it doesn't just tell the story of the photos and the cars, but also tells the story of the phone progression, the camera phone progression, because of it starting from iPhone 3. I went to an iPhone 4, went to a 6 to 7, 10, 11 and 13. It also shows the progression of that camera throughout the last kind of 12 years.
So this should be sponsored by Apple.
Yeah, should be probably. Should probably fucking pitch it to them.
But you usually shoot on professional cameras for your other work.
Of course.
And
Correct.
There's one old person out there that goes, oh, so he shoots all these portraits on an iPhone.
Yeah, no. Of course, I shoot my commercial work on professional cameras, which I don't know how to use. I still don't know those buttons because I'm not technical. Bracketing. What's bracketing? What did you ask me before? White balance? What's that? What's a balancing? All I know is about New Balance shoes.
What have you got on now?
Not I got Chucks, the Chuck Taylors. I haven't aged gracefully, mate. I'm still 40 and wearing Chuck Taylors. What the fuck? Like, come on, Phil, get over it. Drop him. You're not fucking at uni anymore. Soon I'll be rocking the Dunlop volleys. But no, I think that's one definitely part of the process that's, I think, somewhat important, because it's not the usual way I shoot it, and I think it's reimagined. Phones have reimagined street photography in a sense. It's giving people a new weapon, so to speak, rather than carrying a DSLR on your shoulder. So it allows you to be a little bit more flexible in how you're photographing. Of course, technically, and they're not probably the greatest form of a sensor, but it still captures an image, doesn't it? The magic's still there.
So you're in support of the
I'm in support of nothing.
consumer camera revolution?
Oh, I'm just in support of the magic of photography, regardless of how it is created. I think it gives everyone the opportunity to take a photo.